If you're ever lucky enough to travel to Japan, it's almost certain that the first mode of transport that you're most likely going to take is one of the most famous in the world. Here, known in English as the bullet train, the Shinkansen was created over 50 years ago to connect normally distant Japanese regions with Tokyo and to aid economic growth and development. Early concepts for the Shinkansen lines were drafted in the early 1930s. Prior to this, Japan's network mostly consisted of narrow gauge lines. This was due to the mountainous terrain, and it simply could not be adapted to the higher speeds. The chief engineer Hiroshima and the first president of the Japanese National Railway, Shinzo Sogo, had an ambition to build a brand new high speed line which would connect the whole of Japan. Following careful undertaking, they managed to persuade politicians to back the plan, and following the end of World War II, work began on the first main line. The original main line, called the Tokaido Main Line, had reached its full capacity by the 1950s, so it seemed this line was the perfect candidate for the Shinkansen project. In 1957, the Okayaro Railway had set a train speed record of 90 miles an hour with an electric train on a narrow gauge track. Spurred by this, it was decided that the first Shinkansen train would be electric. Modifications to the line took time and cost over 4 billion yen. It was massively over budget by half and nearly put an end to the project. The project was saved only by Sogo's resignation and admission of responsibility. The first passenger train began service on the 1st of October 1964 and was just in time for the Tokyo Olympics. It was a fantastic success and shaved over 2 hours off the journey time from Tokyo to Osaka. By 1965, the Shinkansen could make that journey in just under 3 hours and 10 minutes. It was so quick that they even encouraged day trips between the two cities. This service significantly not only changed the lives of the Japanese people, but how they conducted business. Instead of living in Tokyo, people had the opportunity to commute in comfort and with ease. 2 years after it opened, the Shinkansen welcomed its 100 millionth passenger, and 1 billionth by 10 years later. Soon, the line was moving an average of 23,000 passengers per hour in each direction. The Tokaido Shinkansen Railway's success prompted rapid extensions, and soon Okayama and Hiroshima were completed. But the growth grew too much for the Japanese National Railway, and despite its initial success, it went into debt, and the railway had to be privatised in 1987. From that privatisation, other models of Shinkansen have been produced. The Shanghai maglev train, which uses electromagnets to propel its engines, recently set a world speed record of 375 miles an hour. This greatly excited all the other railway companies, and plans are in the works to upgrade all of the lines to maglev. Because of the high-speed operation and to ensure comfort for those on board, not only do the engines have to be high-deck, but so does the railway track. Careful consideration and planning were used to make the tracks as straight as possible. Freight trains are not allowed on the lines, and the tracks are strictly off limits to anybody, including cars. There are no level crossings, and with the tracks either going above the roads or under them. You'll also find there's little to no bends, and there is a set curve radius. Unlike British Rail standard gauge, the Shinkansen uses specialised expansion joints. This allows for a smoother ride and also allows for the expansion and contraction of the tracks. In hot and cold weather, you will also find that there are no signals along the tracks. The Shinkansen has an automatic train control and automatic train protection, and the central control controls all of the trains at the same time and knows exactly where each one is. Everything is computerized, and that means there's little to no margin for error. This system is so precise that in all the time it's been operating, no passenger has ever been hurt or killed at the fault of the railway. And if a train is late or early, even by a few seconds, it actually makes the news. Where if a person was found to be blamed, the person responsible had to make a public apology. Even natural disasters such as earthquakes have minimal to no impact on this schedule. Now, if you've been to Japan and you know many of the cultures, you may also know that there is also a very specific etiquette with a lot of things that you do. For example, it's considered disrespectful to leave chopsticks upright in the bowl. It can also be considered extremely rude to offer a tip after a meal, as the Japanese feel that the money that you are charged should reflect the best service that you get. And if you offer to pay more, this could be a sign that this service was not given to you. Same is true on the railway, and on the bullet train in particular. When the train comes into the station, you will be ordered to stand in line. It is considered rude to cut in line or not let others leave the train first. Although this is mostly relaxed, eating large or fragrant meals is also sometimes considered frowned upon. But snacks and smaller bento boxes are okay. However, the use of mobile phones while seated is strictly forbidden. If you do need to take a call, the railway officials recommend to stand in the hallway and also be mindful of other people. You may also receive a sharp eye from the conductor if you play music or video games without headphones, even if you do this quietly. Also, because of the speed the trains go, weight is also carefully considered. So this is one of the few railways that I know of that actually carry a weight limit to the amount of luggage you can have aboard. So let's have a look at that power car at the National Railway Museum. This is leading car 22-141, and it was the last of the original Zero Shinkansen power cars to be withdrawn. It was built by West Japan Railways in 1976 and withdrawn for service in October 2000. The power car is electric driven and is unusual, as all of its wheels are powered by the electric lines, as opposed to many electric vehicles today having either just the front or the back wheels just being powered. This gave it extra power to get up to its extraordinary speed of 130 miles an hour. This particular travel car travelled as part of a 16-car formation between Tokyo and Osaka. As the engine got older and as other engines were able to travel faster, in 1997 it was given a shorter route between Hiroshima and Hakata. After it was withdrawn, the Shinkansen was restored by over 100 Japanese railway workers, and they then very generously donated the engine to the National Railway Museum. This is the only bullet train outside of Japan, so it's a very unique and wonderful opportunity to not only own such a piece, but to display it. The train has had its own display, and you can see a piece of the line that's been gratefully donated to the museum, as well as several items such as a guard's uniform and whistles. There are talks on the Shinkansen, and if you climb aboard, you can watch a special video dedicated to travelling on this high-speed and rather impressive express.